Training.com, CWIprep course. Come visit us at our website at train-eng.com, pronounced training. This is our CWIprep course. This is as you go through some of these videos, these will be some snippets or samples out of our online training course. If you like what you see here in the sample section, come and visit us and take the course. Our CWI online Part A video course, $149. It's self-study, CWI exam. Everything's an online video course. CWI preparation course, Housekeeping and HotWork, Module 2, Part 3. Our learning objectives for this module are good housekeeping and HotWork permitting processes, definitions of them, and an explanation of why they're a good idea and how they fit into the weld inspector's universe.
Good housekeeping. Good housekeeping is important in preventing injuries caused by trips, slips, and falls on slippery decks or cluttered walking or working surfaces. Poor housekeeping can block exits and access to emergency equipment. Failure to remove trash and other debris increases the risk of fire. Cluttered work areas can lead to accidents and cause worker injuries due to slips, trips, and falls. Being struck by falling objects impeded access to exit routes and firefighting equipment, and fires because of improper disposal of flammable or combustible materials such as rags, paper, or cardboard. What's this telling us? Well, we've all worked in places. Some places have better housekeeping than others. Most places I've worked that had good housekeeping were probably the safer places to work. Whereas because people are conscious of things, it's kind of an overall, mindset. And this isn't the job of a CWI to fix the universe, but good housekeeping, if you have any control over it, you probably want to, do the good housekeeping thing. OSHA has standards for good housekeeping, and they expect people at workplaces and employers to, have good housekeeping practices. It's just a good way to go.
Good housekeeping. What's it entail? Well, materials stored in their place. Tools, machinery, equipment, or systems cleaned and stored properly. Waste placed in correct bins and containers. Lighting maintained. You don't want to be stumbling around in a dungeon. And regular and routine cleaning. It's just keeping the place clean so there's not a fire hazard, a tripping hazard, something going to fall on you. Generally, a place of work that is clean and well kept is generally safe. They kind of go hand in hand. You get into a workplace and it looks like something like a bomb went off in there. Odds are there's probably some deeper seated issues as far as safety too. If they're not taking the time to clean up and they're in such a hurry, could be an issue. Might want to take a look at it and be cognizant of that as the inspector for your safety in your life as well as other people's safety in their lives.
What is HotWork and why is it hazardous? OSHA defines HotWork as work involving electric or gas. Continuation of the previous slide. Why should we be concerned about HotWork? Well, because sometimes when welding or cutting, a spark invites disaster because of the tremendous potential of flammable vapors or gases that might be present. Sparks and slag can scatter throughout an area where HotWork is going on, sometimes up to 35 feet or more. Sparks and slag can also pass through cracks, gratings, doors, drains, other open hatches, openings in walls, floors, vessels, and creating fire explosion hazards sometimes in distant areas. So we need to be cognizant of what we're doing, what we're working on, and the areas around us that might have a potential for combustible to catch on fire. For those of you who haven't dealt with HotWork permits, this slide's just going to touch on and kind of explain what it is. HotWork permit is a document issued for the purpose of authorizing a specified welding or cutting activity. A HotWork permit is needed on some job sites in order to perform work that involves a source of ignition when flammable materials are in the vicinity or can be considered a fire hazard. Welding, soldering, cutting, and brazing are all considered hot work, as is grinding and drilling in the presence of flammable materials. A hot work permit system helps an organization maintain control of hot work operations to avoid injuries and losses from fires. Due to the hazardous nature of all types of hot work operations, millions of dollars in damage are caused each year around the country. A hot work permit system provides the following advantages. Workers are reminded of required safety precautions and responsibilities, central organizational control and coordination of hot work activities within a given location. Like I said, I don't think I mentioned this before, but when I was in the Navy, I was on a ship, obviously. Navy, ship kind of goes together. We went through a shipyard period, and generally, just any time there was welding being done on the ship, they had a hot work permit that was needed. Joe Welder, a hull technician, couldn't just strike up an arc and start welding somewhere. He had to go get permission from the powers that be that said, hey, I'm going to be here. I'm going to be doing this welding work. Do you want me to do it, or do we want to do it later? How do we want to approach this? So there was a system, and it gave you control over who was doing welding, what, when, where, and how. And that's what a hot work permit does. It just kind of keeps all the cats going in the right direction. And if you get into a certain situation where welding absolutely has to be done in a place that maybe isn't the best place for welding, you can take all the precautions. The workers can be reminded of the safety precautions and their responsibilities. Central control can let people know that, hey, we got hot work going on in this place, and it's it's not the best place to be welding, but we absolutely have to have welding done here. So that's what a hot work permit is and why we have a hot work permit system. This is an example of a hot work permit. I got this off of the University of Tennessee Knoxville's website. You can see the required precautions. You can see, the names, the nature of the job, the hot work operator. And, you just go through this checklist. You're not welding on ceilings or walls, and there's monitors and confined space entry forms and adequate ventilation for smoke and vapors, all these kinds of things. But, and this isn't the only way to do it. This is just one I found on the internet and was able to give you guys an example of what a hot work permit looks like. Permit request time, date, expires, just general information. Hot work permit program, hot work locations. Hot work is generally allowed in two types of locations. Designated area, which is a permanent location approved for routine hot work operations made safe by removal of all possible sources of ignition that could be ignited by the hot work tool, welding, cutting, brazing. Controlled area is one in which safe conditions for hot work exist or where safe conditions can be created by moving or protecting combustibles. Non-permissible locations. Hot work is never permitted in certain types of locations where safe conditions do not exist and cannot be created. So these are some general, and not to say these definitions do apply to every hot work permit program, but it's plus or minus. It's generally the definitions that are probably going to be used or something close to it. But it gives you an idea that, hey, there's some places where we do welding all the time. We've moved all the flammables. We're good to go in this area. Controlled area, that's when you have to go do something specific out on a site, and we're going to do a one-time right here. We're going to create safe work conditions in this spot for this point in time, and then after that, we're not going to weld here anymore. We've had our permit. It says we can weld from this point to this point in time until this task is done, and then we're out of here. And then non-permissible locations are just, heck no, we're not ever welding here. So there's no way we can create a positive work environment, safe working conditions for welding, so we're just not ever going to do it here in this place. Here's an example of a HotWork designated area. You can see the welders, they've got everything cleaned up. They don't have stacks of wood and rags and combustible materials. This is a HotWork designated area. Light it up. Go for it. Weld all you need to in this area. You don't need to get people's permission. We don't have anything here that's going to catch on fire, and we've taken the requisite precautions to make sure that nothing's going to catch on fire and there's nothing in this area that's going to get caught on fire.
In this episode, we covered good housekeeping and HotWork permits. Both of these are really important for welder safety and the safety of the inspector while you're in the shop. You want to keep your eye out and make sure that, everybody's keeping track of things. It's not your job to tell everybody to keep everything clean, but it isn't a bad idea to let the people in charge know if there is a housekeeping issue. And also HotWork permits. You don't want to be somewhere working on something and somebody, the workforce that you're inspecting or keeping track of doesn't have HotWork permits, or they're doing something that's outside the boundaries of safe work habits and or legal. So that's why we covered these two. Unlike a lot of other programs, we've got it set up so that you can do it a la carte. If you only need we've got different parts of the CWI course broken out. So if you don't need to sit through and take safe practices for welding inspectors, or you have some strengths that you know of and you want to streamline the process and only hit the sections where you don't really have a strong background or a great deal of proficiency, our program is set up so you can take some of these parts of the CWI online course a la carte. Pick and choose, put together what you want. Leave the rest, like a Chinese food buffet. We've got one section where it's questions, and more questions. We've got a whole number of CWI self-study question bank, $40. Come on in, take it, take a look, see. If you just need questions, if you sat through another course and you just want to keep hitting the material, check out our question bank, $40.